So we decided to do our investment opportunity on commodity investments in anticipation of a recession. And the commodity that we chose is wheat. And this presentation is by Quinn Fender,
Joe Pisano,
Sam Keresey.
Rishabh Jain,
Rishabh Jain,
and Thomas Liao.
So I'm just going to go a little into the commodity market before we actually talk about an investment opportunity. There could be there's numerous benefits of investing in a commodity. So if you have a commodity in your investment portfolio, you're going to see low correlation with other assets between equities and fixed income and positive returns over time. During economic downturns, the impact between correlation such as equities and major grain commodities like CBOT corn and wheat and soybean futures. And contributing factor to heightened correlation between equities and commodities includes demand growth from China and other developing countries, biofuel policies, monetary policy, trade restrictions, and supply shortfalls. And this graph just highlights the S&P 500 versus grain futures. So it just shows the tendency for heightened correlations for returns between key agricultural commodity benchmarks and counterparts on the S&P 500 during times of financial distress.
So on the supply side of wheat as an investment, more recently, there has been a lot of export issues that are decreasing worldwide exports. So in big wheat exporting countries, there has been bad harvest, not only due to the war that's ongoing, but just because of weather conditions and environmental issues, there has been a decrease in wheat crop. And as a result, then government have been limiting exports to other nations. And even in countries that do have good harvests, such as Australia, there has been unexpected events that make these crops unusable for human consumption. And instead, these crops are resulted in other use, or they're just basically wasted.
So I'm going to talk about the U.S. wheat outlook. U.S. wheat ending stocks for 2022 and 2023 are forecasted to be down 34 million bushels, which is about 576 million bushels. And that's the smallest it's been in 15 years. High temperatures this summer caused the conditions in the U.S. West and the country's Great Plains, and intense heat also in Oklahoma and Nebraska, and just really ruined the wheat supply for the year. Also, persistent drought is another real condition that impacted in South America and in parts of Ukraine that just impacted the overall worldwide wheat supply. And futures prices have increased because of tight U.S. supplies and international uncertainty about the community of Black Sea wheat shipments. And the projected U.S. season average farm price, which is already a record high, was increased by 20 cents. So now it's about $9.20.
As the graph shows, what Joe just said is pretty prevalent since the future prices have been increasing due to the decrease in supplies worldwide. And US as a whole has been shipping less. It's not just other countries as well, because this is due to demand for the wheat in our country domestically, not just on consumer consumption, but also demand for livestock and other feed grains. So this also influences our demand for it. And it's been hitting the lowest since the 1970s.
So to now touch a bit about the war in Eastern Europe and how it has negatively affected supply of wheat throughout the world. So there's been a decrease in supply because of the war. And as you can see in these graphs, the one on the bottom left shows where the wheat is grown within Ukraine. And you can see how it's pretty evenly spread out throughout the country. And then the one on the right shows where Russia is invading Ukraine. And there's some overlapping areas to where the invading is taking place and where the wheat is being grown. And this has caused a lot of disruption to wheat farmers, which has caused supply to drop. because of this, and also exports have also decreased in the Black Sea because tensions between Ukraine and Russia have caused shipping and through the Black Sea to decrease. And Sam's now going to talk about an agreement between these two countries.
Yeah, so as you can see, we have the ticker down here for wheat based on the Chicago Board of Trade. You can see the high spikes are due to, as Quinn mentioned, the struggle with exporting the grain from Russia and the Ukraine due to the multiple blockades of what is traveling, getting in and out of the Black Sea, thus causing the price to rise. But as you can see, based upon the arrow, in July 2022, they're able to reach an agreement brokered by the UN and Turkey to slowly allow Ukraine exports specifically to leave the Black Sea and go out into the global market, thus dropping the price. This, however, this agreement is not necessarily on the best of terms, as Russia recently has began bombing large infrastructure and electrical grid systems in Ukraine, which actually hurts and limits their supply of electricity to these farms in which they need to help operate machinery and just the general living conditions for farmers. And also due to this, Ukraine is still doing a lot of shipping across land and train and on the Dunby River, also causing what we believe to be an increase for the price of wheat in the near future. And we also believe, as Russia has stated multiple times, that this agreement they will pull out of this agreement based upon their performance in this conflict. So that leaves a very uncertain future for the price of wheat, which has now been using the stores of the previous harvest in Ukraine. Additionally, due to this uncertainty and the ongoing conflict, there has been a decrease in the amount of hectares planted by farmers. So we believe, due to these uncertainties, that this price, though agreed upon and significantly decreased since its spike, as you can see from March to July, is in a moment of uncertainty and will be likely to increase in the near future.
So now looking at the demand side, the expectation for economic growth, global consumption, the demand has been increased for wheat because of global consumption, and it's a staple food. It makes up about 40% of what all international families or people need within their diet. And because of a growing population, demand will just continue to increase. And as you can see on this chart on the right, production is here, which is gray. So that's the supply side of wheat, and it's less than the demand side. Demand is higher and has been continuing to rise.
Yeah, so then upon the demand side, to examine an international crisis that's going on, that's putting a lot of stress on the already dwindling supply, is the ongoing drought and potential famine in East Africa. Countries such as Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, and the South Sudan have had an extensive period of drought, leading to not only a decrease in the potential drinking water for their inhabitants, but also a decrease of water that can be used for agricultural or livestock growth. Because of this, this area and region, which has already been dependent on imports from Russia and Ukraine, has been exponentially stressed due to the turmoil in the Black Sea, especially around the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. This has been perpetually growing based upon 5 failed rainy seasons. And right now, the UN believes 50 million people face acute food insecurity, specifically in Somalia, where they believe to be a large ongoing famine, which can claim the lives of over hundreds of thousands of people. The US has donated $1.6 billion, and Russia has even donated 1,000 metric tons of wheat to the region, but this has done little to prevent or inhibit the eventual famine, which the UN believes to occur. This region also is additionally is an already impoverished area, and the 8% increase on global food prices, especially wheat, which is one of the main staples of their food and used in their livestock development, has also negatively impacted and is contributing extensively to this crisis.
So now looking at wheat consumption in the US, as you can see, between 2007 and 2008, there's a slight increase in demand for wheat. And that's because of the recession and wheat being a staple food in times of high inflation. Many families and many people tend to purchase cheaper options. And we anticipate another recession in the upcoming near future. So we think demand will increase again for wheat, causing in the US more people to be purchasing wheat.
Yeah, so based upon the previous information which we have mentioned, there has been a projected growth of wheat and corn in their benchmark future performance, as wheat over the month of October increasing from projected -5% all the way up on a steep incline to over 1%, as additionally as well as corn over the general first 2 or 3 weeks of the month, going from 0% all the way up, climbing past 3%. And we believe this current graph is a representation, or can be used as a representation or projection for the future performance of corn and wheat specifically in the near future, as Quinn mentioned before in Ukraine, who is currently sending out their remaining reserves of exports in wheat and corn specifically, that these reserves running out, paired with high demands across the globe, especially in especially in the areas of Eastern Africa, where there is the ongoing famine, and in the US, who also had a poor harvest year, that there's a dwindling supply and an increasing demand, and especially in a time where it looks like we're transitioning into a recession, that people are demanding a cheaper product and a cheaper source of nutrients. And these factors, when combined, we will continually see the performance of wheat, corn, and grains of that nature growing exponentially.
So on the fiscal policy side, I'm going to talk about mostly about Russia's fiscal policy on wheat, because they're one of the biggest suppliers for wheat worldwide. They have been like especially hawkish on their tightening of wheat exports, despite being one of the wheat's biggest exporters. This is due to the limited harvest and demand domestically. So Russian demand for wheat normally remain pretty stable and flat, but when harvest isn't ideal, the government imposed export quotas as well as export tax policies. So since the mid-2010s, there has been an increased amount in fiscal policies surrounding exports in Russia. And normally these are export taxes immediately followed by export quotas. So there's only a certain amount that could go out to worldwide shipments. And the world's growing reliance on Russian export is not helping with the limited supplies, which in turn will fuel rises in prices. And it is very possible to imagine Russia implementing additional fiscal policies that focuses on export, both in taxation as well as more quotas to how many exports could happen in a year. Especially with the ongoing Russo-Ukraine war, there is a hampered worldwide wheat supply and demand domestically. So then wheat prices worldwide is going to go up. I'm sorry, next slide. Yeah, so this is just a graph showing there's a growing reliance on Russian exports. So since the 2000s, it's on a steady rise, which directly correlates with the next slide, which is basically a projection of wheat prices. You can see a slight hike in sort of like mid 2022 because of the start of the Ukraine war, but it immediately stabilized to its normal sort of projection. And it's pretty easy to see how it correlates with the reliance on Russian wheat. And so we project that wheat prices will increase as demand is directly correlated with Russian exports.
So going towards the monetary policies. So as the Fed is going to is increasing the interest rate, in that same constraint, the interest rates are going to help in the farming, as like there won't be much of the warehousing, and there would be a great demand for the whole wheat across the nation. Even the high interest rate will increase the deficit for the wheat. So the monetary policies directly impact the cost of agriculture and cost of productions throughout the nations and the worldwide. Moreover, the America is the one of the greatest country with the highest exports of wheat. And as per the projections in July 2020, like by the July 2022, there was a great exports in wheat up to $35.6 million to the Mexico. Later on, like how different kinds of crops are being produced, you can see in the next slide where you have the different seasons. So when it comes to the monetary policy and the types of crop, so the wheat is the crop which is grown like throughout the year, where you have the high cultivation in the winters, and whereas less in the other springs and less in the durum. So the movement of the crop is very rapid, and it increases the demand, and it's a fast moving good. So you need to grow it again and again, and that's how it increases the demand and supply. And the monetary policies also plays an important role by keeping those interest rates. And there's a separate bill for the farmers also to grow the crop, where that is known as a farmers bill for the benefit of them. And this is the historical chart for the wheat, where you can see, as like Quinn mentioned above, in the 2006 and 2008, there was an increase in the demand of wheat when it was the inflation at that time, and we expect one more inflation or something like that coming up again, and there's going to be again in the increase in the demand of the wheat, where wheat is going to be most stabilized part to be produced.
So just to quickly conclude, we believe it would be a great investment to purchase wheat futures, and you could purchase them through the Chicago Board of Trade. And we believe this because of the reasons that we stated throughout the presentation, whether it's supply decreasing or demand increasing, and then additionally with both the monetary and fiscal policies that surround wheat. Yeah, so we believe that the prices of wheat futures will increase in the near future and continue to increase. We believe that it would be a good investment to hold on to wheat futures. Thank you.